I think you should use a dark chip.
I was studying for a math test one night. It was around 7 when I heard the phone ringing. I heard my mom calling me downstairs, telling me my friend was on the other line. He told me that he just got back from Gameland with a copy of Mega Man Battle Network 4 Blue Moon, and he wanted to tell me all about it. I know he was excited about the game and everything, but I was kinda tired and wanted to focus on my homework before 9:30, so I told him he should come bring the game over tomorrow after school. The next day, school ended early on account of summer was 2 days away. Me and my friend headed over to my parents' house to play some games on my GameCube. I had a Game Boy player, but I wanted us to play some Kirby's Air Ride for a little while, but my friend insisted on showing me the effects of the cheat codes he found for Mega Man Battle Network 4. Now, my friend recently started getting into the Battle Network series about a year ago, since he played the first 3 installments, which I personally don't really have anything against. It's just that I never really got into any of the Battle Network games long enough because the beginning felt so drawn out and boring to me before I even got to the actual gameplay. Granted, that's probably because I started with the side-scrolling platformers, but I didn't want to hurt his feelings by saying something like I prefer the gaming styles of the original Mega Man and Mega Man X series over the games of Battle Network. But my friend was more interested in cheat codes ever since his older brother taught him about the 30 Lives code and the classic NES Contra game, and since then, he wanted to know more about them. He would often go to a site called cheatcodes.com and try out many different codes for each game that he had. I decided to let him play first for a little while, and to give Battle Network a second chance. At first, I wasn't too thrilled about seeing Mega Man in an overworld perspective, until I saw the random encounter system and the battle phase sequence. The whole RPG aspect of the game quickly changed my mind, and I wanted to try out a couple of battles. After he saved the game, he gave me a shot at trying out a few battles as well. I wasn't very good at it, but he walked me through the game's basics battle phase of killing viruses, using battle chips, and how to get the best scores after a battle. I had a lot of fun, and we ended up losing track of time playing Battle Network 4 the rest of the day. About a week later, I got a call from my friend telling me he found a rare exclusive cheat code at this one gaming website that he found. The code was supposed to activate some deleted cutscenes and a beta dark chip merchant that should have been completely removed. He wanted to show me after he had a chance to try it out for a few days. After that, I hadn't heard from him in about a month. It's not the first time he spent playing a game for long periods of time, but still, even then he would call occasionally. I couldn't help thinking it was kind of odd that he didn't try to call or anything, and I was starting to get worried the more I thought about it. I decided to go over to his house and find out what was going on. I knocked on the door, and his mom came out instead. I started to ask if he was home, and I saw her wiping tears from her face. I was a little afraid to ask why she was crying, and sure enough, she told me she got back from the hospital after visiting him in intensive care. I jumped back on my bike and rushed home. In a panic, I asked my mom to take me to the hospital to visit my friend. She grabbed her keys, and we drove there as quickly as possible. I went to the room he was staying in. It was worse than I could have ever imagined. He had stitches on most parts of his body, and he was hooked up to life support. The doctor said they found him lying on the floor, unconscious, with deep scars all over his body. But they managed to get him here just in time, but his vital signs were still pretty weak. I sat next to my friend for what seemed like hours as I talked to him, hoping in some way he could still hear me. He finally opened his eyes, but he looked at me with this level of fear I've never seen him express before. He kept saying, "He's coming to kill me," over and over again, until his vital signs started to crash. That's when the doctors came rushing in and said that I had to go back home while they tried to stabilize him. I was terrified that I was going to lose my best friend. I had to find out what did this to him. I decided to go over to his house the next day and see if I could find something. I asked his mom if I could go into his room, and she allowed me to go through. I looked all over his room until I saw his DS Lite on the floor, smashed and broken to the point to where it's unplayable, with a copy of Battle Network 4 inside, still in near-perfect condition somehow, next to 4 torn pieces of paper. The paper pieces looked like they had some writing on both sides. I grabbed the game and the pieces of paper and headed home. I went to my room and took some tape to put the pieces together. There were 8 numbers and something written on the back of the paper that read, "The Ultimate Dark Chip." I wanted to know, if this was the exclusive cheat code he was talking about, why would he tear up something like this and break his DS Lite? It's not like him to do something like this for no reason. The only way I'd know for sure was to try it myself. I put the game in my Game Boy player and saw the option to pick New Game or Continue. I selected Continue, and the game started me in Higsby's store in front of Numberman's lotto code machine. I inputted the codes, and a text box appeared with a question mark indicating a mystery character telling me to go check out the Undernet and to look for the net merchant. I explored the Undernet for quite a while, talking to every net merchant that I ran into, but each one I talked to said they ran out of stock. I was beginning to think that the game was messing with me, and with all the viruses that I kept running into just increasing my frustration, I was about to give up and call it a night when I saw the net merchant that looked kinda odd, like an unfinished or half-deleted sprite character. I didn't want to go straight up to it because I was afraid it was going to crash the game or something, so I saved first before talking to it. The music cut off suddenly and a text box appeared with a mangled character image saying, "You looking for the strongest chip ever created?" The store selection menu appeared. The only thing he had to sell was an item called Reaper Scythe D for 80,000 zennies. I pressed the R button to know exactly what the item was, and it said, guaranteed to kill all foes from any space in one hit. Luckily, my friend had saved up more than enough zennies to afford it, but the item itself looked really creepy. The image showed a Grim Reaper holding a crimson-colored scythe while draining the life out of Mega Man, but the way Mega Man looked in that image was especially creepy. His armor was a faded color, half of his lower body was disappearing into data bits like he had been deleted, and tears were running down his lifeless colored face. I hesitated to get the dark chip at first, just because of how creepy it looked alone, but I was strangely curious to find out why this item was such a big deal and to see what it could do in battle. I bought the item, and the internet area started shaking for a while, followed by that creepy Drakey's Mansion theme. A text box appeared with the same mystery image, again saying, in your possession, you hold a forbidden power. Don't take it lightly, for it comes with a heavy price. If you don't heed my warnings, I will come to collect. Then the game froze for a little while. I thought the game broke and I was about to reset it when the screen flickered for a few seconds, and then it stopped and faded to a scene of Lan waking up out of bed to the sound of his PET going off. A text box with a scared-looking Mega Man appeared, and the following discussion took place. Mega Man says, Lan, how could you? Lan asks, huh? What are you talking about? What did I do? You of all people should know how dangerous dark chips are. Getting the Reaper Scythe dark chip was a bad idea, and we don't know how badly it will affect me. Lan replies, I don't even remember getting this, but I'm not planning on using it anytime soon. Besides, do you really think that this dark chip is much more dangerous than any other dark chip? Mega Man says, maybe. I get the feeling there's something more to this than just another dark chip. It feels more ominous than any of the dark chips we came across, Lan. Lan answers, I know what you mean. I get chills just looking at it. Lan, I want you to promise me that you'll never use this chip, and that goes double for you. As I read the last bit of text, I felt sort of uneasy reading it. Did Mega Man really talk to me just now? I thought for a moment. Nah, it's probably some error in translation or something, as I brushed it off. But as soon as I pressed the A button, Mega Man said, yes, you, the player, holding the GameCube controller. I don't want the same thing happening to you like your friend, so I'm giving you the same warning I gave him. I freaked out, dropped the controller on the floor, and ran out of my room to my parents screaming. I told them that the game talked to me, and as you would expect, any typical parent reaction, they thought I made it up, and they said that I was using my imagination to get some attention, and that I should take a break from playing video games for a while. My parents turned off the TV and told me to go ride my bike for a little while. It hurt that they didn't believe me, but looking back at it, I thought maybe I was overreacting and was just stressed out. I went back to my room about an hour later and saw the light of the GameCube was still on. My parents must not have noticed that the GameCube was still on, I thought to myself as I was about to turn it off. But I was kind of curious to see if that text was still there, so I turned on the TV and saw that it was gone, but Lan was still standing in the middle of the room. I thought, maybe I'll play a little bit more before turning it off, as I saved the game and had Lan head over to his PC to jack Mega Man into the net. I had Mega Man wandering all over AC/DC areas 1, 2, and 3, trying to get some practice in with the combat style of the game so I can get good enough to do some more exploring around the cyber world. I must have been playing for a couple of hours, because when I looked at the clock, it was around 10 PM. I thought I would get in a few more battles before going to bed, and I logged Mega Man out and jacked him back in to look for more green mystery data. I was exploring AC/DC Area 3 a few times when Mega Man stopped and stood in place for a brief moment before the screen faded to white like any other random battle encounter. But the music was different, and this orange and yellow character with 2 large needles for arms appeared. He had 1,000 HP over his head, and I figured he must be a boss. It took me a moment to quickly realize that the character was a Battle Network version of Sparkman. I was quite surprised to randomly encounter a boss in the middle of an ordinary place like AC/DC Area. I figured that I'd try to use what I knew so far and try to beat him and call it a night. But as soon as the battle started, Sparkman started moving all over his area, launching attacks everywhere. Since he was the first boss I faced in this game, I wasn't familiar with his movement patterns, and he kept hitting me with attack after attack. Every time I used a battle chip, he would move right when I used it, and it would miss him completely. I got pretty angry getting beat by Sparkman. My HP was pretty low while I barely got any hits on him. I looked at the top left of the screen and saw Mega Man's facial synchronizer had an upset expression with a dark yellow background. When the custom gauge filled up, I saw 2 additional chips appear in the remaining blank spaces. These chips were Dark Recovery, which recovered 1,000 HP, and Dark Sword with an attack power of 400. I went over to one of those dark chips and the screen got darker and this creepy sound kept looping. I went back to one of the regular chips and the screen went back to normal. I was kind of interested to use those dark chips, but I didn't want to miss and end up wasting one of them. Before I knew it, I used up every normal battle chip I had and still barely took away any HP from Sparkman. I had only 1 HP left and my only option was to use those dark chips. But at this time, those dark chips were both Reaper Scythe D. Looking at the image again made me feel a bit nervous and scared. I really didn't want to use that thing, but I didn't really have any other option left because I didn't get a chance to save the game. Plus, Sparkman was really annoying me, and I wanted to take him out in one hit. As soon as I selected one of those dark chips, I heard a loud buzzing noise coming from my GameCube, and the game started to lag a bit as the screen turned darker for a short while. Mega Man began to levitate off the ground, and these dark purple orbs of light started to appear all around him as he started struggling to break free. The first orb entered Mega Man's chest symbol, and he let out a yell of agony that made me cringe just hearing him suffer through my TV speakers. The rest of those orbs entered his body one by one as Mega Man continued to cry out in pain until there were no more left, and the color of his armor turned black. Looking at Mega Man's facial synchronizer now, I saw the most evil and sinister expression I have ever seen. He had pitch black eyes with glowing red pupils and a pure white face. Those eyes were staring right at me with a frightening grin. Sparkman was still attacking, and I started pressing the D-pad in every direction, but Mega Man wouldn't move. He just stood there in the center of his area, as the attacks didn't seem to faze him. I pressed the A button, and for a brief moment, his hand turned into a black scythe with a dark bluish-purple glow around it. He did the sword-swinging animation, and it covered the entire enemy side. Then the screen froze for a while. I thought the game broke, so I pressed the Z button to restart the Game Boy player, but the screen started spazzing out a couple of times. I started to go over and turn the GameCube off, when I heard something sounding like meat getting brutally pierced. Shortly after that, this creepy, distorted music started playing. I couldn't make out what it was at first because it was playing at a slow pace, and the pitch was a bit low. But sure enough, I recognized it as Draki's Mansion theme in reverse. The screen started spazzing out at a rapid pace before the music suddenly cut off, and a gruesome image of Sparkman appeared. It showed his needle-like arms ripped out of the joints and jammed down his eye sockets all the way through the other side of his skull. I was terrified and a little nauseous looking at the image. It eventually faded to black and the screen went back to AC/DC Area 3's overworld. Mega Man was on his hands and knees and his body was surrounded by a dark purple aura with a glowing white orb orbiting around him, and a text box appeared with an image of a very upset Lan. Mega Man? Mega Man, what happened? Are you okay? Answer me! Mega Man! No response. Mega Man, please! Don't die on me! I don't know what I'd do without you! Mega Man! Mega Man! Reading that text made me think about my friend in the hospital, and I started to feel a mixture of fear and sadness. I couldn't take the emotional tension from the cutscenes anymore, so I went over and yanked the plugs out of the wall socket and went to bed. As I laid in bed, I couldn't go to sleep right away. I started looking around my pitch-dark room with nothing but the sound of silence looming over the darkness. I started feeling paranoid, thinking that someone else was in the room, watching me. I began hearing that creepy reverse Draki theme playing in my head as I grew more unsettled. I stayed up around midnight with my fears getting the better of me. I grabbed my remote so I could watch a little TV to calm myself enough to get some sleep, but the TV wouldn't come on. I soon remembered that the TV was unplugged. I was too scared to move. I hid my head under the covers and closed my eyes until I fell asleep. I dreamt that I was at the hospital, in the room where my friend was. I was relieved to see that he was still alive and resting in his bed. Everything was fine until I heard the same deep voice from the undernet. He said, "You should have heeded my warnings. Now you'll pay the price." Just before, my friend started screaming in agony. His stitches were breaking, as something appeared to be stretching his wounds wide apart. I panicked and started shouting as loudly as I could for someone to come and help him, but nobody came, as I continued crying out for anyone to hurry and help. Soon after, I heard his vitals crashing. I could literally feel the tears running down the sides of my face as I watched his life slipping away. Shortly after, I heard a deep chuckling voice coming from the other side of the room. I looked over where it was coming from, and saw the dark figure beginning to manifest itself next to my friend. I shouted, "Get the hell away from him! Leave him alone!" as I raised his hand over his lifeless body, and a glowing white orb appeared out of his body. All I could do was watch as I stood there frozen in fear. I started hearing my friend's faint voice speaking, "Please help me. It's so cold and dark here, and I'm scared. I don't want to go. I'm afraid to die." The dark figure instantly appeared right in front of me and said, "I'll be collecting your soul soon enough." Then it reached out and grabbed my throat, and I woke up screaming with my own hands somehow around my neck. I never felt so afraid of a nightmare in my whole life. My face was still wet with fresh tears. I heard my parents running towards my room as they came rushing in shortly after. "What's the matter? We heard you screaming. Are you okay?" they asked as I started to wipe the tears from my eyes. I told them about my nightmare and how afraid I was about something bad happening to my friend. But just like before, they brushed it off like I was overreacting over some silly little dream just to get more attention. I was so angry that they couldn't see how I was clearly feeling. The one time I needed them the most, and they treated it like some kind of joke. But my mom told me she would take me over to the hospital next week on her off day. I went over to the window to get some fresh air as I looked down the street. Sometimes I would get this feeling that my friend would be coming down that street at any moment. I guess those kind of feelings are to be expected when your best friend's in a hospital bed for so long. After a week passed, me and my mom went over to the hospital. We were going through the entrance when I saw my friend's mom being escorted by 2 doctors as she was crying heavily, looking like an emotional wreck. I feared the worst and ran to his room as fast as I could. When I got there, the nurse was changing the sheets on an empty bed where my friend used to be. "Where's my friend?" I asked, and the nurse replied that he was gone. I was slightly traumatized by her answer, as I wasn't sure what she meant. I asked, "What do you mean he's gone?" As I started to get upset, that's when the doctor came in with a sad look on his face. "I'm sorry to tell you this, but a few nights ago, your friend passed away. His vital signs suddenly crashed, and we did all we could for him, and I'm truly sorry for your loss." After hearing that my best friend was dead, I was in a state of shock as I felt mixed feelings of sadness, anger, and depression. I heard my mom trying to comfort me as she gave me a hug and said how sorry she was. Then she took my hand and we walked over to the car and went back home. 2 months passed since the death of my friend. My parents would check in on me more often just to make sure I was doing alright, and I would always respond with, "I'm fine," as I sometimes found myself wondering, where was this concern back when I needed it? Even though my parents were there now, I still felt alone, keeping all my emotions bottled up inside. One afternoon, my parents had to work overtime at their jobs, and they told me that they were going to be coming home much later. They gave me the phone numbers of their jobs in case something happened, then they went to get dressed and left a little while later. I went over to the window and watched their cars go in opposite directions to their jobs as I looked down at the street that my friend used to take to get here. Looking at it now fills me with depression, knowing that he's gone forever. I sat back at the foot of my bed. I looked over at the GameCube with a copy of Mega Man Battle Network 4 still inside the Game Boy player slot. I suddenly had this feeling to play it again. Maybe it was to ease my grieving heart, or the fact that it was the last game that he and I shared while he was alive.
I turned on the Game Boy player and selected Continue. It started me in Lan's room, with his dad standing next to his bed as he woke up. "Good morning, Lan." "Dad! How's Mega Man? Will he be okay?" "He's fine for now, but that dark chip has corrupted his programming in a way I've never seen before. I managed to isolate the effects temporarily to prevent it from spreading any further, but without a permanent cure, I'm afraid the effects of the dark chip will change him completely." "No, Dad! Isn't there something you can do to cure him?" "I don't know, Lan. I've done all I can for him, but I've never seen this kind of corruption. You should probably avoid net battling, otherwise that dark chip could activate again, and you'll end up losing the Mega Man you know for good." His dad left the room, and Lan tried calling out to Mega Man a couple of times. After a while, Mega Man finally started to talk, slowly calling out to Lan. "Mega Man, you had me worried sick. How are you feeling?" "I feel kinda strange, but I'm still okay to do some virus busting." "Hold on. Dad said there isn't a cure for what's infecting you. If you take critical damage and that dark chip activates again, I might lose you forever." "Don't worry, Lan. We've been through worse before. Plus, I won't let that happen. I promise." "Alright then, let's go." Lan walked over to his computer and jacked Mega Man into the net, but the game started glitching a couple of times again. I thought I saw a sad, ghostly face appear a few times as it glitched, but I just thought I was seeing things. Soon afterwards, I was sent to Dex's PC HUD instead of Lan's. Then Gutsman appeared in front of Mega Man in the middle of the area. I walked over to him and another cutscene began.
"Hey, Mega Man! Dex just gave me a new update for my combat program. Let's battle! Guts!
The option for yes or no came up. I selected no a few times, but every time I did, Dex would say,
"Oh, come on, Lan. Quit being such a scared little crybaby and net battle me."
I wasn't in the mood to battle him, and it really annoyed me that he wouldn't let me deny his battle. So I selected yes, Dex made another smart remark, and then the battle began. I wanted to beat that jerk, but the game didn't let me set up my folder, so I had to battle with chips that caused small amounts of damage. Gutsman slammed his hammer onto the ground, cracking my whole battle area, preventing me from moving while he threw his fist at me, putting my HP close to near death. There wasn't much I could do except wait for the custom gauge to fill up, but when the battle chip selection came up, every battle chip was crossed out with black X's, except for the dark chips. I didn't want to use them after what happened last time, but I didn't want to lose that battle. Just like before, both of them were Reaper Scythe, but when I chose one of them, the music cut off and Mega Man was surrounded by that dark purple aura again, even though I didn't activate it yet. But despite my better judgment, I used the dark chip anyways, and Mega Man did the same attack animation before the screen froze. But a little while after that, the screen started blinking rapidly, and I heard this loud, unnerving sound of a body part getting torn and snapping off all of a sudden. It startled me. Then this graphic image of Gutsman laying on the ground with his jaw ripped off and his eyes rolled back appeared. The image made me feel sick to my stomach, and I thought, I didn't mean for that to happen. It was an accident, before the screen faded back to Dex's HUD. A text box appeared with a crying and upset-looking Dex image.
Why, Lan? I just wanted to have a friendly net battle with you. You didn't have to go all out and kill Gutsman like that, you jerk!
Dex, wait! I'm sorry, it was an accident! I'm sorry, lad. I blacked out, and I should have never risked jacking you into the net. I'm logging you out, now! As Mega Man was warped from Dex's PC HUD, I heard this strange noise, sounding like my disc was getting scratched, coming from my GameCube, before Mega Man was redirected to Yai's PC. Glide appeared shortly after, with a text box showing his face looking quite disturbed. Mega Man, Miss Yai heard a commotion over at Dex's house. Has something happened over there? What's the matter? Is something wrong? Mega Man looked like he was in some kind of trance, and the colors of his sprite began turning dark. He started shooting at Glide, and Yai screamed as her Navi was being killed.
Lan, what are you doing to Glide? Stop it! Get him out of here!
Mega Man, stop it! Log out now! But he continued firing until Glide collapsed on the ground. I started tearing up as Yai called out to her Navi, but he didn't reply back as the image displayed Glide's dead expression in the text box. Yai was crying dramatically as she started blaming Lan and Mega Man for the death of Glide.
This is all your fault, Lan. If I never met you or your stupid Navi, Glide would still be alive. I hate you both.
Yai, I'm sorry. Damn it, Mega Man. Why didn't you listen to me? Why did you kill Glide? What? No, I didn't mean to. I swear, I couldn't control myself. I'm so sorry, Lan. No, Mega Man. This is all his fault. The screen cuts back to Lan's room. He was standing in the middle of it, facing towards me. Why are you doing this to Mega Man? He's my best friend and you forced him to use that dark chip, even after he clearly warned you. I'm begging you to stop before you end up like your friend. I dropped the controller on the floor as I stared at the screen in disbelief. It was clearly alive, telling me not to continue, but it seemed too crazy to be true. At any cost, I didn't want to play this game anymore. So I went to go pull the plugs out of the wall again, but the cords were really hot for some reason, and they burned my hand. It was like the game didn't want to be turned off. I tried to leave, but my door was stuck and I couldn't get out. I was trapped and scared with no way out. I saw the text box appear on screen, but I didn't even touch the controller. I was nowhere near it. Mega Man, I need to log you out before you attack anyone else. I wish we had never gotten that dark chip. Me too, Lan. I'm scared of what that chip is turning me into. It's too dangerous to let you roam around the net in your current condition. You might end up deleting another innocent Navi again. I've got to log you out right now and shut off the PET until Dad gets back. What's wrong, Mega Man? Log out. Mega Man? Just then, Mega Man's image began to change on the text box, and that creepy reverse Draki's Mansion theme started playing again. His armor was now a dark lavender color, and his face a pure white, as he had black eyes with those piercing red pupils and that sinister grin on his face. Not yet, Lan. I can still kill the one that used the chip. The one responsible for this. The screen switched back to Mega Man, as Lan tries calling him back to his PET, but Mega Man ignored it as he warps to the next area. All I could do was watch as he appeared in Mail's PC HUD, behind Roll. She turned around and was startled to see Mega Man out of nowhere. Oh, Mega, you surprised me. What brings you here? I'm not sure. I was about to log off, actually, when I started feeling strange, and found myself here. The screen flashed a few times, and Roll fell to her knees, like her energy was being drained just from standing near him. I found myself yelling at the screen for Roll to get out of there. What's going on? I feel strange. What's the matter, Roll? Not feeling well. Mail!
Lan, what's the matter? Why are you yelling?
There's something wrong with Mega Man. He's out of control. Log out Roll right now before he deletes her too. Hurry!
What? Is this some kind of joke? It's not funny, Lan.
I'm not kidding. Please, Mail, before you lose Roll like Dex and Yai lost their navies. But before Mail could do anything, Mega Man raised his arms straight up, and the screen started to flicker, a purple static, maybe a few times, and then the HUD turned nearly pitch black. Mega, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? So that your operator can't log you out until one of us dies in this net battle. When the battle began, the game started me as Roll with 1,000 HP. This time I was fighting against Mega Man, who had 2,000. A text box appeared again with Roll's image having a very frightened expression. "Stop this, Mega! I don't want to battle you like this! Go back to land so he can help you!" I can't hold back the dark chip's power any longer. It's taking control over me. You have to delete me now. It's the only way. The battle chip selection menu came up, with the first chip I saw on screen being a Recovery 300. I nervously walked back to the bed and picked up the controller. My heart was pounding rapidly, and my hands were shaking as I picked each battle chip carefully. When the first phase started, I soon found out Roll's basic attacks didn't have any range. I had to wait for Mega Man to get close enough for it to hit, but his movements were unpredictable, and he would use a variety of battle chips, one after the other, and each of them dealt a lot of damage. Fortunately, Roll's attack recovered some of her HP every time it hit, and I had plenty of recovery battle chips, so I was holding my own. But after Phase 2 began, I started having an eerie feeling as I heard the boss theme begin to slow in pace. Mega Man had that creepy dark aura surrounding him again. Then 2 white glowing orbs appeared, orbiting around him. I kept fighting as I used chip after chip, trying to keep my HP high and deal some damage to him. But when my custom gauge filled up, my battle chip menu came up by itself. I thought I must have hit the L or R button by accident. I tried to select them, but it wouldn't let me, and then the screen began to twitch and spaz out a few times before it cleared again. But the battle chip's image was drastically changed to horrifying looks. The Recovery 300's image was a human heart. The barrier had an image of a hand sticking out of the ground, and the Roll 3's image was a skeleton with some of its ribcage broken, and its arms spread out almost like it was meant to be the skeleton of Roll. When the third battle phase began, the boss music got even slower, with the faint sound of a deep voice chuckling in the background. I started getting more unnerved as Mega Man's armor color started changing back to a dark lavender, and another orb appeared. Mega Man then went to the center of his area and stayed there like he was waiting for the phase to end. Roll's normal attack wouldn't reach beyond 1 square space, so I had to use those battle chips. But whenever I tried to use one of them, the screen would flash red for a brief moment with a slashing sound, and Roll's HP would drop by 300. I hoped it was only a glitch. I really wished it was, but my battle chips were rendered useless. When the fourth phase started, the boss music cut off entirely and was replaced with Reverse Draki's theme, as another glowing orb appeared. His face now pure white once more, with those black and red eyes as he was enveloped in the dark aura. A text box appeared with an image of him appearing to be staring at me, with that evil grin on his face and those orbs around him. "Sorry, Roll, but I've toyed with you long enough. It's time I added your soul to my collection. I won't let you. Please, Mega, you have to snap out of this. We're friends, don't you remember me?" "I would spare you, but then I wouldn't be doing my job now, would I? Goodbye, friend." Once again, Mega Man used that scythe and did the attack animation, and the screen started to lag before it froze. The image stayed a bit longer than the others before it cut to black. Everything was really quiet for a while. I could hear my heart beating faster and faster until my chest began to ache as I anticipated the next horrible image. After what felt like a full minute of silence, I began to wonder if the game had finally stopped working, and then I started hearing the sounds of a faint, constant stabbing, getting louder and louder, while a girl was screaming in pain, followed by cries of agony and suffering, as I could only imagine what Mega Man was doing to Roll. I couldn't take it anymore. I tried turning the TV off, but the power button on the remote and the TV itself wouldn't work, and I couldn't mute the sound either. I was afraid to try removing the plug because I didn't want to get burnt again. I just closed my eyes tightly and stuck my fingers in my ears trying to drown out the sound, but I could still hear it like it was coming from everywhere now. Then everything went silent. I laid in my bed, curled up, thinking of one of the reasons for this sudden silence. I was afraid to open my eyes for the fear of my assumption being correct. I took a deep breath and slowly opened my eyes facing towards the wall. They were lit with the red glow coming from the TV screen. I slowly faced the screen and saw that Roll's arms and legs were cut off. She had multiple stabs and deep cuts all over her body as she was suspended by that black scythe that's gone through her back and out of her chest, with Mega Man standing behind her with that evil grin. Her face had the expression of her going into a state of shock, looking at the scythe sticking out of her chest as she had tears streaming down her face. As I watched that horrid image, I could feel her sadness and fear. I looked away even though I stared for only a few seconds. That image had left a permanent scar in my memory. I just sat there, hoping it would all go away. My body was trembling with this indescribable fear. I thought I was having a panic attack at one point, but everything was quiet for a while, until I heard that reverse Draki theme playing once more. I was too scared to move from the foot of the bed. Won't this hellish nightmare ever end? I had to see it at some point, so I took a deep breath and slowly raised my head to look at the screen. There was Mega Man's dark character sprite, standing in the center of Mail's PC HUD, with that dark violet aura emanating from his body, and now 5 glowing white orbs circling around him, the souls of his victims. Soon, a text box appeared with an image of a very upset Lan. Mega Man! How could you do that to Roll? How could you do such a horrible thing to one of your closest friends? To all of our friends? Answer me, damn you! Mega Man only responded with a few ellipses and a sickening look of enjoyment in his eyes. Lan kept calling out in anger until Mega Man finally spoke. I'm no longer your NetNavi. My only purpose is to obtain enough souls required to have a solid form in reality, and I don't need you anymore. He raised his hands up, and his aura shot upwards towards the sky. The screen cut to Lan Sprite getting electrocuted before his body collapsed dead on the floor. Then the screen cut back to Mega Man as another soul orb appeared circling around him. He then turned to face me with those black and red eyes, and he started to laugh. Then the last text box appeared with that image of Mega Man staring at me with a psychotic grin on his face. And those souls. This is all your fault. I wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for your carelessness. Now, I'll return the favor by adding your soul to my collection, just like I did your friend. I suddenly heard this loud scraping and buzzing noise coming from the GameCube, like the disc inside was being torn to shreds. As soon as the noise stopped, the TV shut off and the room went dark again, with just the street lamps outside shining through my window being the only light in the room. I could still hear that creepy music playing in my head over and over. Looking at my nearly completely dark room, I felt like I was being watched as I would see figures appear out of the corner of my eye, only to find them to be nothing more than piles of clothes and junk. The room started to feel a bit colder, and as I was about to hide under the covers, I heard someone whisper, "I'm here," right next to me, and I ran towards the light switch, but the lights wouldn't come on. I just kept flipping the switch repeatedly. I saw something standing in the corner of my room in front of the window. It had a human-like shape to it. I knew it wasn't there before, and I started to panic, and I ran to the door again and tried my hardest to open it. I pulled as hard as I could, but it wouldn't budge. Then I heard that same whisper again, coming from behind me. "It's your turn." And the room got even colder, to the point I could see the fog coming from my breath. I suddenly felt an intense pain down my back. It felt like a knife had slashed down my spine. I fell to the floor, screaming in pain as I started crying for my parents. I slowly looked up and saw the dark figure standing over me. I backed up against the door as the thing raised one of its arms and swung it down in front of me. I yelled again as I felt another scar across my chest. I screamed for help as I started getting dragged towards the middle of the room. I was hoping it was all just a nightmare that I'll awake from, but I felt a tremendous force pinning me to the floor. I felt the pains of those scars on my back and chest as I laid on the floor staring at the ceiling, and I felt more tears run down my face. There isn't a word great enough to describe the level of fear that I felt that night. The air above me began to feel colder and heavier to the point where it got hard to breathe. I saw 9 glowing orbs appear over me one by one, and I found myself thinking that I was going to die that night. Soon, that dark figure started to manifest right above me, taking the form that I now call Reaper Mega Man, as he stares down at me with that same evil grin he had in the game. I still remembered that deep laughter in his voice as he told me I was going to be his 10th soul. As the air around me got thicker, I soon started to lose consciousness from the lack of air. The last things that came to my mind was the regret of not being there for my friend sooner to stop him from ever finding that code, and how much I missed him. Soon I started hearing sirens in the distance before I passed out. I awoke to find myself in a hospital bed, hooked up to life support almost the same way my friend was, when I heard footsteps. I thought my parents were going to come through the door, but it turned out to be the doctor instead. He looked at me and said, "Glad to see you're finally awake. I thought we had lost you for good." As he started examining my condition, he told me when the police found me I was on the floor, barely alive and covered in deep cuts and scars all over my body. The neighbors called the police after they heard me screaming for help. He also told me I've been unconscious for almost 4 months. When I asked if he knew where my parents were, the doctor had a very sad expression on his face, and he had a deep sigh. That's when I knew they were dead, because the only other time I've seen that expression was the day I heard my friend had died. A few weeks later, I started having these violent hallucinations, seeing Reaper Mega Man trying to take my soul away while I tried to sleep. I would wake up in the middle of the night and scream at him to go away, but when I try to show anyone that he's standing right in front of me, they all think I'm crazy, because I would be the only one who could see him. It got so bad, I accidentally attacked one of the doctors, thinking that he was Reaper Mega Man trying to kill me again. And I was moved to a psychiatric hospital for nearly 3 years of therapy, just so I could sleep for more than 30 minutes without screaming that he's going to kill me. It's been over 8 years now since then. I'm still taking medication to keep me from seeing him everywhere I go, and some Xanax so I can sleep. About 2 months ago, I decided to go to the cemetery, where my friend was buried, to pay my respects, and so I could talk to someone else other than myself and a psychiatrist. I was about to leave when I noticed the dates on his grave looked kind of familiar. The dates of when he was born and when he died, 1992 and 2004. Then it hit me. Those were the exact numbers in the cheat code he found. I know it sounds strange, but that code had somehow predicted the year he was going to die. I spent months looking for the site he found, but I couldn't find any trace of it anywhere. My whole life has been filled with nothing but loneliness, depression, and paranoia as I continue to watch my back, fearing that, real or hallucination, I know he's still out there waiting for me. And eventually, he will kill me and add my soul to his collection.